All right, greetings and salutations, everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton. And for the first time in a real long time, I'm not doing the show from my car. I know a number of you have asked me to maybe do something other than at the Circle K. So here we are. But I did want to dive in and try to just talk about something. And yes, later today, I will go ahead and put up a preview video of the Green Bay Packers versus Detroit Lions game tomorrow. But I think a lot of times media gets bored, big media, I should say, and maybe little media too. And they want to talk about, man, you didn't get this girlfriend. You could have had that girlfriend. And that's kind of how I look at it when it comes to everybody talking about Jalen Carter. I think we all agree the kid's playing well in the first 3 games of the year. But let's look at our rookie class. What would be impacted and different if we would have went with him? First, let's just look at the fact that we traded back from 6 to 12, we get Gibbs. Gibbs, it's early, but I'd say Sunday was definitely his best game. And in sports, stock trading, whatever it may be, life in general, the trend is your friend. And this kid is starting to add up and do some things that a lot of other running backs in the league can't do. And I think he's going to get only better and better as time goes on. Don Burr, yeah, I see your comment. Yes, please stop with the Carter stuff. So if we don't make that trade back, we also don't get Sam Laporta. So consider this. How different would our offense look this year if we didn't have those two? Now, let's look at Campbell. Campbell, I get they're having him play and earn his way up the depth chart because of the play of Derek Barnes, Anzalone, Rodriguez. So the issue there is there's other players who are playing pretty well at his position. But as we talked about prior to last weekend's game against Atlanta, I thought there might be a possibility that we would see more Hutchinson, Campbell, and I didn't foresee Barnes, but I think you're going to see a lot more of these guys almost play like a 3-4 edge linebacker / defensive end and come after the quarterback. I'm going to say this. Campbell is going to be a load to handle because of his size, strength, and just ferocity. The kid plays angry, and he plays angry all the time. Now, let's also talk about a potential, I'm not going to say he is, but I'm going to say potential defensive rookie of the year candidate, Brian Branch. It's impossible to say how a draft board changes if you start changing 1 or 2 picks towards the top or even the middle round. But would we have Brian Branch if we drafted Jalen Carter, forcing other teams to change their picks? That's a real question. I don't think we see a lot of the media address that when this topic of Jalen Carter should have been in Detroit or whatever comes up. So off the bat, I'm going to say this. Name a Lions rookie that you're disappointed with. Even Kobe Sorsdale came out and played, I think, pretty well in the time he was asked to play last weekend against the Falcons. I mean, the kid was thrusted into being the starting right, or excuse me, not starting, but performing right tackle out on the field for the majority of the game. And that's no small feat for a late round pick who's all of a sudden pushed into prime time and doing well. So while we're talking about the rookies, let's talk about the strengths of Brian Branch. Raise your hand right now if you think this is somebody that we overlooked. And most of the NFL is probably going, we should have drafted him. In fact, a couple of teams like Detroit could have drafted him twice, maybe even 3 times by the time the Lions took him. Everybody looks back and goes, man, we should have probably taken Tom Brady or Brock Purdy. And probably a lot of the NFL right now are thinking the Lions pulled the wool over their eyes by taking Brian Branch. So go ahead and let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I get, I think we all get Jalen Carter is performing well. But would you rather have Jalen Carter over the majority of the draft we do have? Go ahead and let me know what you think. Let's see. JP, what do we got here? Carter is good. So is who the Lions drafted. I agree. Love what the Lions did. And so let's look at the math behind it. If we take Carter, I'm going to say this. We don't get Laporta and Gibbs. That's 2 for 1. And while Carter is great, let's also consider this. The Lions get potentially one of the best backs, if not the best running back in the NFL draft. Robinson, we'll see what happens. He's had some good games too. I'm not trying to discredit him, but could the argument be made Gibbs is the best running back in the NFL currently? Now let's talk about Laporta. I don't think there's an NFL team out there right now who wouldn't take him, or if they could go back and redo the draft, take him before Detroit gets to him. Brian Branch, same scenario. And I get we already kind of talked about it, but would there be any NFL team that wouldn't take this kid right now and try to jump or leapfrog the Detroit Lions to do so? He might just be the best defensive back in the NFL draft, at least for this past year. And by the end of this season, I wouldn't be surprised if some people have him listed in the top 15, right around there at least. I don't want to put too much pressure, overpraise the kid because it has only been 3 games. Lions got 4 possible Hall of Fame players in this draft. We'll see what happens. That's some high praise, but it's also something you can talk about and at least keep in the back of our mind and say, let's pay attention to these guys. So talking with Branch, let's start there. The kid's almost impossible to block in any running play. If you go back and watch the last weekend's game against the Atlanta Falcons, the Falcons tried. They even tried sometimes with a tight end. Anytime they pulled or ran sweeps out wide, Branch blew up the play. He got around and beat the blocks consistently to where the Falcons had to give up those ideas. Now, talk about him in pass coverage. It didn't matter if he was matched up with a wide receiver or a tight end. He won the vast majority of those matchups. I'd say somewhere around 80% of them. And that's insane for any cornerback / safety, or whatever you want to call Branch. But to win that much, that often, that's impressive. Now, Campbell, again, I think this kid's got some real promise. I think he will eventually be the starter for the Detroit Lions. Again, the issue is the linebackers in front of him are just simply playing strong enough to keep him at bay for now. But I think Aaron Glenn is being forced into being a little bit more creative due to injuries and trying to catch teams off guard. That's why we're talking about having more and more of our linebackers rush the quarterback. That's exactly what the Lions did last week against Atlanta, and I don't foresee that being any different against Jordan Love. The big advantage over just keeping the defensive ends out there is against more mobile quarterbacks, which I think if you've been a Lions fan for a while, we struggle with. The advantage is you also now have more speed out there. The trick is going to be on obvious rundowns. You probably can't do it as much just because, you're not going to be able to stop the run as effectively. With that being said, though, by using Derek Barnes and Jack Campbell out there, these are players who can play the run fairly well. And especially, like I said, with Campbell's size, the kid is a monster. And I think you all, if you pay attention to his pre-draft scores and all that type of stuff, you'll probably understand that, yes, Jack Campbell is going to be a fine player. Funky Dude, agreed on the above points. Go Lions. Thanks for that, man. Hey, good morning to you. Good to see you, man. You have the hardest name for me to say in all the land. It's too early to give the class high praise. They're playing well, but let's wait until midway at least. Carter's and Austin, though. I agree. I don't want to give everybody the gold coat just yet. Good morning to you, man. But I think we can all say the trend is your friend, and if they do this for a season or two, then yes, the Lions probably get a home run with this NFL draft. So the one player that's been drafted that we don't really know a ton about yet is Broderick Martin. I think everybody knew he'd be a bit of a project. He's got all the physical, dimensions, things you and I can't teach. He's got the size, the power, the mass, but he is playing in the NFL versus a smaller school, so probably going to take a little time to develop. Yes, possible, but not guaranteed. Correct. So there we go. Carter Pill. Yep. Hey, Carter is a good player, but I prefer to worry about us, what we have and what we can do going forward. And what I'd say is this: Brian Branch seems to be that he will be one of the best defensive backs in the NFL for the foreseeable future. Now, do you want to call the best top 10, top 15, top 20? I'll leave that to you guys to debate, but I'm going to say this. There's probably no reason, unless injury, for him to leave the Detroit Lions starting lineup in the next several years, as long as, again, he's healthy. Jack Campbell, same scenario. He's going to be a starter at some point, but is it going to be this year, next year, whatever? And I think they are going to move him around and not just have him play the mic all the time. Dr. Troy, Carter should be the pick. We missed. That's not crying. That's facts. I agree, but you know what? We can't change the draft, so let's just worry about the guys we do have. That's kind of my point. Hey, he might go on to be a Hall of Famer, but it doesn't mean the rest of the guys we took were bad. So, anywho, changing my name to AP. There are clones of me. Yep, go for that, man. Answer 14, Lions rookie class is intriguing for sure. Is it possible this is Holmes' best draft class? It's a great question. A great question indeed. But again, we've only played 3 games, so let's maybe wait and see at the end of the season before we do anything. I will say this, though. I do think, and you guys let me know in the comment section below. Dr. D, you're worried? What are you worried about, man? So anyways, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. But who would you say outside of Brian Branch is the best player from this draft class in your view? And do you believe Brian Branch has an opportunity to be Defensive Rookie of the Year? I think him and Carter, among other people, have some real shot here. It's just obviously you're going to have to keep playing at these levels throughout the season. Middle of the line, that's your worry? Well, Buggs coming back, and hopefully with Broderick Martin, hopefully that'll help stabilize things a little bit. I will say this to you, Dr. D, and everybody listening. I was surprised that how much they're playing John Kaminsky in the middle of that defensive front. And they're not doing it on just passing downs. They're doing it on rundowns. If you go back and watch the first 3 games, he's out there a lot. And I was surprised, especially against the Falcons, as physical as they are, just how often he was in the middle, even on first down and second down. And to his credit, he didn't get blown off the ball. He probably hit a little bit more juice going through his veins against the Falcons, the team that cut him, but give the guy credit. Let's see. 2 players not playing in the first round level. The second rounders are better. There's definitely some thought to be had there. I don't think anybody could discredit what Branch and LaPorta are doing. But here's my question to you, Dr. D, and everybody watching. Obviously, the 49ers were looking for a new quarterback. They traded, 3 first rounders for Trey Lance. They end up getting their starting quarterback in the 7th round with the very last pick of the draft in Brock Purdy. So my question would be, does anybody really care where you got the player as long as you got the player? We'll wait and see what happens with Gibbs and Campbell, but I think they'll both be fine players. It's just they're playing in positions with some good talent around them, where Detroit Lions secondary, I think everybody knows forever, has been a glaring need. I mean, you'd really have to go back to the probably the 90s or so to find when the Lions secondary was really strong. But so there's not a whole lot of people keeping them at bay in the secondary, and then with LaPorta at the tight end. Give them more time. Yep, I agree with that. Probably want to give all of them more time because, hey, some rookies can play real well at the start of the year and then dive off after that. So let's wait to the middle of the season, do a little bit of a review, and then obviously after the season we can do a deep dive into all of them. Because at that point you probably have enough information to be able to legitimately say, hey, here's somebody's strengths and weaknesses. All right, what do we got here? Yes. It's like we got 2 to 3 first-round picks potentially with how Holmes drafted. Trust Holmes, and we are good. Carter doesn't fit the culture. To Holmes and Dan Campbell, that's that. And there's probably a lot of truth to that. I got to imagine they saw how talented he was, but from a personality standpoint or whatever they felt comfortable with, they decided to go in a different direction. Could it be that it wasn't simply that Carter was bad, but they got an offer they couldn't refuse? And, the other side to the Carter not taking him is that it allowed you to get Gibbs and LaPorta. And maybe there's other parts to that I don't remember offhand. Sorry, it is, 7:30 in the morning. I haven't had my morning Mountain Dew yet, so I'm probably still a little sluggish and waking up. But did Brad Holmes and Campbell simply say that, hey, we can get one Jalen Carter or we can get 2 players in Gibbs and LaPorta? And that's something I guess only they can answer. Let's see. It's good to see Campbell and Barnes edge rushing. Harris, Aquara, Kaminsky not getting to the quarterback. I agree. I think they mixed some things up, caught Atlanta off guard. The other part of that is, Green Bay will be prepared for that. But I will say this, in the past, I think you could find a lot of linebackers that get to the quarterback better than some defensive ends. The problem is they can't be out there doing that on every down. So it's got to be very situational, which, if you go back and watch the replay of the Atlanta game, that's pretty much what they did. They made it situational, but it also does put pressure on offensive linemen to keep up with all the different types of rushers they're getting, people with different moves, tendencies. That's a lot to ask out of any offensive lineman. So, let's get on to the Green Bay game just for a couple things when it comes to injuries. It sounds like a lot of the Green Bay walking wounded, or maybe I should say about half of their walking wounded, are going to be back for tomorrow night's game. The good part is Taylor Decker is saying he's going to play, and looking like David Montgomery is going to play as well. Outside of those guys, I guess we'll have to wait and see who shakes up. Mosley, if he doesn't play this week, which I'd say is probably a long shot, sounds like he's 100% sure he'll be back the following week. But we'll see what happens. The good thing is for Detroit that since we're already incredibly thin at right tackle, this is going to allow Penei Sewell to move back over there, Decker in, Glasgow at right guard. That's a pretty good force as long as nobody else gets hurt. Otherwise, yeah, we're pretty beat up and thin there. All right, second, just the rookie classes, though. If you guys can, in the comment section below, let me know who your top 5 Lions rookies are. Hey, here's who I think is number 1 for us this season, number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Branch makes up for a lot of this draft to me. Hard to disagree with that. He's playing next level. There are very few DBs in this league that are as physical as him, that shed run blocks as well as him. And if you guys can think of somebody who is playing better in the secondary when it comes to getting to the run, playing the run, locking up tackles, and as a DB, go ahead and let me know, because there ain't many. There ain't many corners that do that, that I can think of at least. All right, JP, what do we got here? Detroit, the Lions are only giving up 2+ yards per run play so far. Other than that, sacks, the middle of the line is doing well. There's a lot of truth to that. And how much is Branch being a factor in that, I guess I would say. You got an outstanding point. We might not always agree with what they're doing up there, or in the sakes of this video, who they could have taken and didn't take. But the stats don't lie after 3 games. And if it continues like this, a few more games, this is probably who their identity is for this season. You won't be able to run very effectively unless you're a scrambling quarterback against the Detroit Lions. But even with that being said, go back to the first game against Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes was their leading rusher because he was forced out of the pocket and, had to get out. And I want to say he had like 45 yards rushing. So as Aaron Glenn showing maturity as a defensive coordinator and saying, on those rush downs, I got to get more speed out there. So Barnes, Campbell, you guys are going to take out wide. Hutchinson, Kaminsky, McNeil, whoever, you guys are going to go inside on those rush downs. It gives you a lot more speed, a lot more flexibility from your front. I guess we'll have to wait and see. So, JP, Sorsdale, his first game or last game, I guess, against Atlanta. Here's what I'll say. Early in the game, I think he was getting bull rushed early when he went out there to get forced into playing. So you watch the Lions add some chipping with running backs, and then also Laporta did some as he chipped and then went out and releasing. But I think you saw by his second drive, the kid calmed down, and he actually did pretty well. He still got some help sometimes from the right guard coming over and blocking before picking up somebody else. But the kid did, I think, for what he got asked to do on the fly, he did pretty well. He's just going to need more time to develop. The dude is Ed Reed level. Yeah, I believe so. Branch is first. And I'd say this, I don't see him coming out of the starting lineup unless it's injury for the rest of his career, unless he really tapers off at some point. But just at this point, where's the weakness in this kid? And yes, getting back to the point of this video, could we have gotten Carter? Yes. But would we miss out on Brian Branch? And I think probably the answer is yes. There's just the mathematical probability of everything still going your way. Nobody else redrafting their board saying, hey, we would have taken Brian Branch if this guy wouldn't have been on the board. So point of this video, be happy with what we have, not what we don't have. And what we have is it's looking like a group of guys that are going to be pretty good. Carter is very good, it appears, but I'm not getting rid of Brian Branch at this point. I'm not getting rid of Laporta. And I think realistically, could you have still gotten Gibbs? Sure. Could you still gotten Campbell? Probably. But you wouldn't have gotten Laporta or Branch, in my opinion, if we would have taken Carter, because other people would have switched their draft boards. So for the sake of this video, I'm just going to say this. It's just my opinion. You can have yours, and don't be afraid to throw them up there. But I'm not getting rid of those two guys, because those two guys, even if they don't win Rookie of the Years in their perspective sides of the ball, they're going to be up there towards the top. All right, let's see what we got here. TS Branch is just super smart, man. Yeah, super high IQ and outstanding positional awareness. He learned the game quick, and he can still get better. He's flying the ball on top of that and trusts his reads. Yeah, he doesn't seem to second guess much. He gets there, he diagnoses the player, whatever you want to say, and he's on it. And his tackling, I will say this. I'm not afraid of saying this at this point in his career. His tackling is elite. If he gets his hands on you, you're not getting away more often than not. And that's for a team that likes to play so much man-to-man principles. That's a huge thing, because if you're going to ask somebody to, we're going to send the house after somebody, your guy catches the ball, you can't let him get away. You need to have that kind of trust. Dr. D, just want another DT. Yeah, I agree. And I will say this, is it possible, you guys let me know your thoughts, is it possible that if, as we keep pushing towards the trade deadline, if, let's just say we'd have a real strong record at that point, and we're going to say we have a legitimate shot at the division, the playoffs, yada, yada, do we make a move for somebody who is going to, get rid of a contract or a player or whatever? I haven't heard anything, so I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying, hey, I'm trying to hold back something. I'm just saying that's a real possibility if somebody is going to get jettisoned from a team. Lions need a tackler. Let's see. Lions need a tackler like Branch. They have poured that area for years. Yeah, agreed. Branch certainly seems to be more than ready for the big show. All right. We need a DT and a wide receiver. I would 100% agree with that. There's still poor at tackling per PFF. Yeah, but not with Brian Branch, I'm assuming. So Dr. Detroit, good point. Brand Holmes is seeing what he has. Can make a move or two. Yeah, and I think, I know I've done some reporting on it, guys. Funky dude that I know last week after the Seattle game, he made some calls on some teams, and one of them was for the running back in LA, and obviously like the next day he got traded to Minnesota. But that does go to show Brad Holmes is looking around for parts. It's just he's not willing to overpay for a part. Let's see. Brian Burns would be awesome. Yep. No team wise, we are not doing well. Okay. Definitely need a DT or wide receiver for sure. Buying is cheaper at the deadline. I think that's what Holmes is waiting for. There could be a lot of truth to that, TS. So I guess we'll have to wait and see when the trade deadline arrives. Do we make a move or not? A lot of that obviously is going to be dependent upon what our record is, position in the division, etc. So tomorrow night's game, huge game. I get that the Green Bay Packers are doing everything they can to get some of their players, and they've got a lot of players injured just like us out on the field. To me, it's going to be real simple. How much pressure can you put on Jordan Love and force him to make reads a little faster than he wants to make them? Rattle him a little bit, and I think you can control this game. But the offense is also going to be more consistent than they were in the second half this past weekend. You can blame the offensive line mix-ups or whatever have you, and there's probably some truth to that because Goff took more hits that game than in any other game in his Lions career, and that's surprising to say, but those are the facts. He got hit on even when he was completing passes early and often. Atlanta was in his face and hitting him, and I do believe just watching how his accuracy altered throughout the game, I believe it did have a cumulative effect on him. I'm glad they didn't test him for any kind of concussion or anything, because there was one point, and I was there at the game in the third quarter watching him move in and off the field. He didn't look fully right to me, and that's not to make an excuse for him, but if he's been dinged or whatever you want to call it nowadays, that does affect your accuracy. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens, but hopefully they're able to protect him a little bit better than they did against Atlanta. So, all right, we've been, going on for 25 minutes here. What are the realistic edge possibilities? That's hard to say. And I think a lot of that, your answer is going to come down to how well does Campbell, Barnes. I don't see him rushing Anzalone, but unless it's on a blitz. Same with Rodrigo. But if these guys do pick up, and we've got probably like another month and a half until Houston gets back, Romeo Quaro. I mean, we do have depth out there. It's just some of these guys have to start performing. But if there's an elite guy out there, are we going to be willing to pay the price? I guess answer 14, that'd be my question to you. All right, Arction, I've been hearing more buzz about Davante Adams. Yeah. Is that a possibility? I guess we'll wait and see. I don't want to speculate on anybody. I've done some videos, obviously, when I've heard information about potential trade options for the Lions, whether it be receiver, defensive players, whatever. But yeah, there's obviously nothing at this point that's come to fruition. The closest one appears to have been the Cam Akers to Detroit one. Brad Holmes did get on that phone, did make some conversations. And then obviously the next day he was traded to Mini. But, hey, obviously they wanted more than we were willing to give. Don't see Holmes giving up more than a fourth. Yeah, I'd probably say that's pretty accurate there. Top tier, 33. All right. Hey, Deborah, I want to give a shout out to her because, hey, when I started this channel, gosh, it hasn't even been a year yet. We're getting close, though. Deborah was one of the first people to subscribe and even comment, on videos. So big shout out to Deborah. Don't have a problem with any of the draft picks. Just need another elite defensive edge or end or edge rusher. I agree. And we're probably going to have to wait till next year's draft to get it unless, some sort of super trade were to come out. But I guess we'll see what happens. How do you think Jordan Love has been looking? TS, that's a great question. So I watched their last two games. Was it like last night, I guess, trying to get ready for the prediction video and all that stuff later today. Here's what I'd say. Jordan Love is better than Ritter, who we just faced. The one thing I noticed with both of them is that when they get flustered, their accuracy does drop quite a bit. But, what NFL quarterback or college quarterback doesn't have that problem? So I think if just looking at tendencies, if I'm Aaron Glenn and at least he's seeing what I'm seeing, I want to force Jordan Love to scramble to his left so he has to throw across his body. When he throws across his body, those passes are just waiting to get picked off. He's not accurate at all. If you allow him to roll to the right side, so his primary side, he's actually not bad with the rollouts. But first and foremost, if I'm going to blitz, I'm going to blitz heavy on that side, forcing him to go left. If he's going to scramble away, the chance of him completing passes goes down significantly. The other part is his deep field passing. So I'm going to say anything more than 20 yards. He's not great with that. He doesn't have the touch yet with that. His middle of the field passing is pretty good, I think. He's not bad there. His passing to the out routes, the sidelines, I guess the polite way to say it is it's not his strength. So the Lions are going to have to focus on taking away the middle of the field, forcing him left. And if you do that, you're probably going to get some picks, or if nothing else, some very inaccurate passes. But, you also see in games, mostly I think week one, where he got on a hot streak. There was no pressure on him. They weren't getting consistent hits on him. And because of that, he kind of settled down a little bit. He was, I'd say, top 20 quarterback. But I'm going to also say this. Just because I say he's top 20 doesn't mean he can't beat you. You allow any quarterback to get comfortable, confident, cocky out there. Man, that accuracy starts getting better. That belief system starts getting better. Ability to scramble. I mean, you get the idea. Everything gets better. All right, let's get back to you guys. Michael, I'd rather have Laporta and Branch than Carter. There'll be some that say that, and I'm not saying you're wrong. What was the issue? We'd have both Carter and Branch. Imagine that. Well, Dr. D, if we could have pulled that off, that would have been something. Here, I'll try to one-up you. What if we could have had Carter, Branch, and Laporta? But obviously, as the draft goes down, things are going to change. With Campbell, maybe Laporta, we have the capital. Well, I mean, it is what it is, man. That was kind of the point of the video, that, yes, we could have changed some things, but also some things would have went against us as well. Love the observation about Jordan. I fully agree. I think is the biggest difference between him and Rodgers. Yeah, Rodgers throwing on the move, that cat was deadly. And we'll hopefully see him again, but not in Green Bay. And that's what I thought was one of his biggest strengths. Once he got to about his first few years out of the way of starting, his ability to hit people while being mobile on the run and really anywhere on the field, that made him rare, in my opinion, because he wasn't the fastest guy, but he could get out and run for yards, and his ability to be accurate with passes while rolling out. It is what it is. We don't have to face him anymore. All right, last one. Whatever now. Both sound. We need a DT and a wide receiver. I'd agree, and I know I've been pushing for the wide receiver part since even the preseason, but is what it is. After this game, as you all know, J-Mo's back on the practice field and only a couple weeks away from returning. So he's still, in my eyes, an unproven commodity. But, if nothing else, he is one more person out on that field. Before we go, I'll throw this. If J-Mo is just somewhat what we think he is, and he's on one of the outside receiver slots, and he's consistently running deep routes, man, what does that do to the middle of the field with Laporta and St. Brown? Because if J-Mo can just be somewhat what we think he is, I got to imagine no defensive coordinator is leaving him in single coverage. You're just going to be asking a lot for the vast majority of DBs in this league to have to keep up with him. So you're going to have to commit two people, one over the top and one underneath on him, trying to keep him contained. And how many other guys you're going to be able to double down on? I guess that's a question we'll have to see once he returns. All right, a few more. Putting pressure on Love will show his true colors. All starts up front with the DL. Yep, we're going to have to take away that run, which so far the Lions have done, and force obvious passing situations for Love. If we do that and the pressure is anywhere near what it was last week on Atlanta, I think we've got a pretty good chance at rattling Love and maybe getting some turnovers. All right, Archon, what do we got? Do you think Marvin Jones is going to improve at all? I actually thought his best time of the year would be the start of the year when he would be fresher. But, man, he's just not even getting targets. I can't even think of outside after the KC game. I can't even think of a time where Goff threw him the ball. If you guys can, go ahead and let me know. But not against Marvin Jones. I just think for whatever reason, whether it's age or maybe Goff just doesn't have a belief system, or is it simply that St. Brown, Laporta and everybody else are just getting open faster than what he's getting? I guess I'd have to do a little bit more film research before I give a comment on him. But hey, nothing else. He's another guy on the roster and somebody that should hold up for depth purposes. All right, guys. Over a half hour here. So the Mountain Dew is calling me. I hope you all have a great day. If you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. Don't be afraid to hit that like button if you would. You guys all know the drill. I'm sure you guys watch enough YouTube videos where I don't got to get the same spiel. But, hey, you all have a great day. I'll try to get the prediction video out a little bit later today for you guys. And you guys can watch that breakdown then. But take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Drink a Mountain Dew or buy one for me if you'd like. Remember, they're 82 cents at the Circle K. All right. Take care. Have a good one. I'll see you on the next Lions Talk Live.